I call upon the next keynote speaker, Mr. Harish, a distinguished engineer, product management Verizon, and he's going to talk about the topic like leveraging in-app feedback to uncover user needs and personalize campaigns. Mr. Harish is a distinguished engineer at Verizon. He has expertise in leveraging advanced analytics and artificial intelligence to improve and promote apps. He has led several cross-functional projects to draw insights on user behavior and develop new features with help of various analytic tools and models. He has a prior experience in software programming and graduated from Kellogg School of Management with an MBA. I warmly welcome Mr. Harish to present on the topic of leveraging in-app feedback to uncover user needs and personalized campaigns. Mr. Harish.
Hey everyone, thank you for the introduction and really excited to be here. Thanks for having me speak at this wonderful event. So maybe I can, so just to add to the introduction, my work is focused on leveraging data to really understand what the users care about and how do we use data to uncover user needs and also personalize the experience. I think gone are the days where we can think of all users into like one segment and we need to think about like multiple segments. But even beyond that, I think within those segments itself, I think users expect like a level of personalization that is very unique to them, and other users don't fall in that category. So I think in marketing, I think we've evolved to really segment the users, and now that segmentation has gone to the next level with personalization. So I think that's the core essence of today's talk. So let me begin by first defining certain things. So on the left side, you can see Play Store rating. So if you go to Google App Store or Play Store as it referred to, or even like the Apple App Store, you can see certain applications. If you want to download, you can also see like ratings and reviews. It just gives a very good sense to the user in terms of how many people have used it or what people think of it, and then based on that users make an informed choice. And on the right hand side, if you see, sometimes you might have noticed this, if you've used a certain app or a certain feature, after using it you get a notification or an in-app message saying that, hey, how do you think the experience was? Can you give us like a star rating, just to collect feedback from the user? So these I refer to as like in-app ratings. Now, the reason why I wanted to highlight these is because I wanted to touch upon what are the limitations of App Store rating. So again, this presentation is purely from a perspective of a product manager or someone who is like doing their own startup and want to build products and improve the product. So it's not so much from the perspective of the user, but like from the perspective of like a product manager, what are the essential things that you need to keep in mind to really understand the user. Now, so as an app store, at an app store, as I mentioned, like for a user, it gives like really good information about what users think about a particular application. But for a product manager, this information is very limited in nature, and so app store ratings have like certain limitations, which I'm going to talk about. So the first limitation is we don't have any context on the user. So if you see a particular review or a rating, you don't know anything about the user. You don't have any context on how long have they been using the app, what plan they are part of, if there are multiple plans in the product, what features do they care about, and what geography may be apart from like a country. So I think the challenge is that you have no context on the user, and so it's really hard to understand sometimes, use this data to really understand why a user gave a 5-star versus a 1-star rating. So this limited context is a big problem in app store ratings. The next limitation is adverse selection. What I mean by that is, users who tend to be more unhappy are likely to take the effort to go to the app store and leave a negative rating. Unless your user is very happy or very unhappy, most users really don't take in the effort to go there and like leave a rating or review, and oftentimes more likely that you will see unhappy users actually giving a negative rating. So what it's doing is it's not giving a true representation of the sentiment in the user base. Because of this adverse selection problem, you will see like more negative bias on the app store. So you're not getting like the true representation of how users think about your app. I mean, it's still valuable to understand the sentiment and maybe draw trends, but as I said, it's not a true representation. And lastly, because there are sometimes spam bots or sometimes irrelevant reviews, and Google and Apple are constantly reviewing what users have posted on their app stores, they're constantly removing certain reviews or ratings. So overall, what is happening is your app store ratings are also changing, like even retrospectively. Like today, if you were to look at like what was the average score in July, and let's say 1 week from now you again try to look at what was the average score in July, there might be a change there. And as a product manager, it can be frustrating because you want to have certain benchmarks which are not changing constantly so that you can see like a proper trend. So these are some of the biggest limitations of app store ratings. So now I want to pivot to in-app ratings, which is, as I mentioned in the first slide, something that the user can see notification on their message while using the app. So these are independent of App Store ratings, and I'm going to focus the rest of the presentation on this particular in-app ratings, as they're very powerful to really understand the user and uncover user needs. So the first thing is, you give a simple message saying, hey, what do you think of the app? And the user gives like a 1 star or a 5 star rating. What you can see here is a simple sentiment trend that, okay, in the month of June, 3.25 was the average score, and now it's like 3.02 in the month of July. So you can just like draw like a trend and then also see how many users are rating. So in-app ratings can also give you this kind of like sentiment score, which is very useful. But beyond this, there are more sophisticated things that one could do. Second, on the App Store rating, you don't have a control on when you're collecting this feedback. A user can go anytime and give a rating, versus in-app ratings, you have more control. You can decide the trigger for when you want to ask for feedback. So do you want the feedback on day one as soon as the user starts using the app, or maybe after 7 days of them using the app, or can it be manual where it's in the settings, maybe they can just go manually and also give the rating. So a lot of these triggers are very useful because user feedback also needs to be collected at certain key points in time when they start using the app, because in the first few days, again, a lot of data can show that like in the first few days or first few weeks, again depending on the app, they are at a higher risk of leaving the platform or deactivating or churning. So it's really important to sort of collect feedback at regular intervals to really understand how the user is feeling across their user journey. So ultimately, the bottom line that I'm trying to convey here is that in-app ratings have that flexibility for you to set those triggers, and you don't have to rely on App Store. So that's another reason why in-app rating is very important compared to App Store rating. And for example, on day one, we've collected in the past ratings which will indicate how was the onboarding experience, because on day one they haven't fully used the application, but you can still gauge their onboarding experience overall by collecting feedback on day one. In other case where I saw that in the app that I was managing, a lot of times users tend to leave after 1 week, like, or 7 days. So just before they are leaving the or deactivating or churning, I'm collecting this feedback to see who are the happy users, who are the unhappy users, kind of like get their data and really understand like why users are going to leave, to be able to predict them, from predict who are leaving and also like why they are leaving. The next one is, you can use these in-app ratings to do a lot of like various segmentation and analysis to really understand why certain users are happy or unhappy. I think ultimately, as a marketeer or a product manager, what you really want to focus is on identifying who are the happy users, who are the unhappy users. I think that's the first step. The second step is, once you've identified happy and unhappy users, the second step is to really understand why a user is happy or why a user is unhappy. What are the factors that are contributing to their happiness or unhappiness? I think that is really powerful. And the third, once you know that certain users why they're happy or unhappy, you can really personalize the experience so that for happy users you can try to upsell them and try to make more revenue out of them, while unhappy users you can personalize the experience so that you can keep them longer on the product and ensure that the churn rate is reduced. So I think these are the three core steps, I would say, in the whole journey, or how you can think of as a product manager. So in this slide, you can see, what you can do is the second step, which is, once you have happy users, unhappy users identified, you can do various analysis. For example, you can see plan one versus plan two. Let's say there are two types of plans on the product. You can see, okay, people who are on plan one versus plan two, how are they rating? Are people more happy with plan two versus plan one? So this kind of analysis will give you that, okay, mostly like people are getting value from plan one instead of plan two, so let me double down on plan one instead of plan two, or like add more features on plan two. So that's like kind of like analysis that you can do, but not just for like a plan type, but you can extend it to various other factors as well. Like for example, here I mentioned few of them, like like a lot of demographics like geography, age, income group, and so on. Or you can actually do it for like a plan type, or like how long have they been with the product, or what channel they are coming in, and what kind of features they're using, what is the app version, and so on. So ultimately you want to do this kind of analysis to really understand people who are happy versus unhappy, what are the factors that are contributing to their satisfaction scores. You can also do this kind of analysis through like machine learning models as well, like through k-means, or which is one of those unsupervised learning algorithms. So what it does is, essentially you feed the machine learning model with a lot of different factors, including the satisfaction score, or what the rating is, and then also like a lot of other parameters, because you don't know which are like important, which are contributing. So a machine learning algorithm can actually segment the users into different buckets, and you can see what is contributing to their satisfaction. So essentially what you're doing is, through this machine learning model, you can actually automate the process of segmenting the users, because sometimes you do yourself wouldn't know what segments are actually being created, and which are actually contributing to the satisfaction score. Another thing with in-app ratings is, it's not just ratings, you can also collect reviews. So what you can do is, this is a simple analysis. Again, this is just a demonstration I picked up from the internet, but a lot of times users don't tend to leave good reviews. They just like very short sentences saying that this app is terrible, I don't want to use it. So you're not really getting a lot of like good insights to be able to draw quality analysis. But what you can do is create like a simple word cloud. There are several softwares available. You can even do it on like Word. Just collate all the reviews and see, okay, mostly like what are users talking about, is it positive, is it negative? So you can do simple analysis like this. But the other thing you could also do is start giving recommendations. So instead of leaving an empty text box saying what do you think of the app, you can also give them 5 options. Let's say, okay, option 1 is like the app is too expensive. Option 2 can be like, let's say the app crashes too much, or and so on. So just give them like the top 5 reasons and ask the user to pick one of these, why they're leaving the app or why they're unhappy. So that way you can get like more quality information from the user instead of relying on a simple text box. The next analysis that is very important is, a lot of times we assume that a happy user will tend to, let's say, leave the continue to stay with the app, versus an unhappy users will tend to leave the app. So I think that's an assumption and it's important to test it out. So here I was able to do that kind of analysis to see that, okay, people who deactivated mostly gave like 71% of them gave a 1-star rating, whereas 17% gave a 5-star rating. So it's a very clear indication that, okay, this in-app rating can be a leading indicator of predicting churn. So what you can do is, you're able to, even before someone leaves your application or the product, they're telling you that, okay, hey, I'm unhappy, I'm about to leave. So that kind of information can be very powerful, because you can generate predictive algorithms to more accuracy, and also you can figure out various ways to keep them once you know that they're about to leave the application. And you can do that by maybe extending the trial period. You can also maybe give them discounts or some other features, etc., to ultimately keep them. So I think this analysis that I did was very powerful to highlight the fact that people who are unhappy are also more likely to leave the platform, and that's a assumption that I wanted to test and validate. And there might be certain cases where unhappy users might tend to stay with the application because they don't have a choice, because maybe there is some other stickiness to it even though they're unhappy. So in those cases, I think you have to think of the how to prevent churn in a very different way. The next one is, you can do like a lot of like monitoring for churn. Like for example, a lot of times we see this anomaly detection. So we can see certain days maybe more people are tending to leave the platform or deactivate, and a lot of times you don't know what was the reason why certain days where there was a very high increase in the amount of churn. So in-app ratings can again, or and reviews can be a very powerful way to really understand like what is causing this anomaly. I think a lot of times anomaly detection is easy, but identifying the reason itself is very hard. So I think here again, in-app ratings can be very powerful. Second, as I said earlier, I identified that as the user spends more and more days on the application, the churn rate goes lower. But on day 7, let's say, the churn rate is pretty high compared to other days going forward. So in this scenario, what you can do is, let's say on day 6, you can identify who are the unhappy users and then offer them discounts, extended trial period, and so on. So this is another way to personalize the experience or campaigns for the user. You can also do like more advanced analytics. Like on the left side, I was able to use a tool to navigate or show the entire path of navigation for the application, which means that a user can actually go from like one point in the app to another point, and for all the users you can see like which are the most common features that the user is using, and you can see if there is any difference between happy users and unhappy users, if there is a different path taken, and try to really figure out like certain features that are not easily discoverable, make them more prominent. On the right hand side, another thing that I do, which is again an important assumption that a lot of people make, is higher engagement leads to higher satisfaction. A lot of times as a product manager, you're focused on getting the user to use your product more often, but again, it's with the assumption that higher engagement will lead to higher satisfaction, but that's not always the case. So I was able to test out here and validate that assumption. But in certain cases, in certain applications, maybe a user is just using the product only for once a month and still giving a 5-star rating, versus a user might be using your product 10 times a month but still unhappy with the product. So I think it's really important to again test this assumption. And based on this assumption, then you can again personalize the experience. If engagement really matters, then you can actually double down on your efforts to add features, etc., to improve the engagement. And lastly, I think, just to conclude, I would say the most important thing is to really identify who are your happy users in the application. And then once you've identified that, second step is to really focus on why they are happy. And then the third step is you can upsell, cross sell products. Ultimately, these happy users will contribute to average revenue per user, so you can increase your revenue through these happy users. The next thing you can do is not only at an app level, you can collect like feature level rating as well. So let's say there are 5 features, you can instead of collecting at an overall app what is the sentiment score, let's say there are 5 features, you can collect rating for each of these features as well. So that's another powerful tool using in-app rating. So once you have collected these ratings, you can again, let's say, customize or personalize the experience. So you can put the higher ranked features on the top of the home screen versus lower ranked features on the bottom. And you can personalize it for each individual as well by building like a algorithm in some way. So those are some other things that you could do with like in-app ratings or like feature ratings as well. And lastly, for unhappy users, ultimately you want, as a product manager or a marketeer, drive more engagement or ensure that you retain them as long as possible by offering discounts, etc. So all of that can be done by personalizing, let's say, a home screen or your campaigns. But the first important step is to really identify who are the unhappy users, why are they unhappy, and what can you do about it. So if you look at like this framework or this process, I think that will help you eventually increase retention and reduce churn. So I'll stop the presentation here, and if you guys have any questions, happy to take them.
Thank you, Mr. Harish, for the wonderful presentation.
Sorry,
And we have one question received from the social media live, and that's like, how effective is personalized marketing?
Yeah, so I think it's, as I said at the beginning of the presentation, it's very important to personalize because each user has their own individual needs. So you can't think of all users as like homogeneous group. And the more you personalize it for each user, the more likely that they'll be happy and continue to increase your revenue.
Thank you so much for explaining the question. And
Any other
the poll
questions?
is open now for the participants. Please poll for Mr. Harish for the presentation done by him. On the topic of leveraging in-app feedback to uncover user needs and personalized campaigns. And also, side by side, Mr. Harish, please share your contact in the chat box so that if anybody having any queries, they can contact back you.
Yeah, sure. I can share my LinkedIn account so people can contact me here.
Thank you so much, Mr. Harish, and for participating in this fifth Global Digital Marketing Summit.
Thank you all. Take care. Bye.